Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Mosquitoes and termites. Are there any creatures worse? Well, I guess if you could have jellyfish in your home, but that's not going to happen. Mosquitoes, they're getting more aggressive and they carry numerous diseases. Termites, they'll destroy your home. Get rid of both. Call Southeast Termite and Pest Control. The team I use, they have treatment options out the wazoo. Don't visualize that, but they have tons of treatment options available. You give them a call, Southeast Termite and Pest Control. They will take care of your home and protect your yard from mosquitoes, protect your home from termites. Southeast Termite and Pest Control. All right, I'm not going to recap the whole deal, but Rick Barnes came very close to taking the UCLA job this week. In fact, he talked to folks last Sunday night and early Monday, and most people close to Barnes thought he's going to take it. He's gone. They offered him an insane $5 million a year contract that would have eventually paid $6 million, all that guaranteed. Plus, he had an affinity for that blue blood program, which, you know, UCLA, it's still a heck of a name. There aren't many places that have won NCAA titles back to back to back to back to back like they did. But UT made a last-ditch effort. Let's go ahead and show you what they provided. Salary will go over $4 million next year. I think most of us think it'll be over $4.5 million. Salary will pass $6 million eventually is the word. Bigger salary pool for basketball staff. That was a big issue. I've mentioned that a few times on the show over the last 2 or 3 months, that there were some coaches at UT that weren't thrilled. Yes, football drives the bus. But if you're having to scrounge and fight for every last dime, and then you see Jeremy Pruitt said, hey, I need 10 new graduate assistants. I need some new consultants, some analysts. Sure, whatever you need, Jeremy. Here you go.
After a 5 and 7 year.
After a 5 and 7 year. So Barnes, clearly one of those guys that noticed an issue there. He also got multi-year contracts for his assistants, something that they now do in football. And he's going to be given a private plane that he can use at his leisure a few times a month. So good deal for Rick Barnes, clearly. There were people that said this week that, well, he was never serious about going. Guys, as I said, he was serious. I mean, Jimmy, I thought he was gone. Did you think he was gone?
I thought he was gone based on the number of sources that I talked to, and there were multiple sources. It just wasn't one or two people. And so I was led to believe that that's probably what he's going to do, and that the contract being offered by UCLA was exorbitant. I will say this, now the contract Tennessee paid him, I was told by a really good source, I think it was Friday, that it's $4.75 million with a $100,000 annual raise over 5 or 6 years. That's a pretty good contract, right?
That's a chunk.
So it makes him the third highest paid coach in men's basketball.
For now.
For now.
You'll see some guys that get a bump because of his salary there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tremendous statement for Tennessee.
And when I talked to him the next day, he talked about the lure of UCLA, the blue blood program. He wanted to restore it to what it had been like. Look, he was never going to restore it to John Wooden, right? But he could restore it to being a Final Four caliber program. And so he was very tempted to go there.
Guys, when you look at it, I see this as a positive for Tennessee. You're spending like a big boy. You're spending more for your basketball coach than your football coach. Something people always wondered, would you do that? Okay, well, you're there. But also, one of the name programs in college basketball just came after your coach when he was just named Coach of the Year, and he decided to stay. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I know there were some people, because of social media now, 1 hour feels like 10. So there were people that were telling me, make up your mind or get out of here, you know, that kind of stuff about Barnes. It was 24 hours. But I don't see any reason to be angry with Barnes or anybody else. This is a statement for Tennessee that, hey, UCLA came after our guy and we kept him. I think it's positive.
Oh, I mean, I think it is a huge positive. Now, you probably get, barring something unforeseen, you probably get Barnes retiring here now. That means that you're going to have stability for almost a decade in your basketball program. When was the last time Tennessee had that stability? I think you got to go back to what, Don DeVoe, to have a decade of stability. So, I mean, I think that's huge.
Yeah, and you have the positives of the headlines, the opportunity to go out there on the recruiting trail and say, hey, we had a chance to go to UCLA, we're staying here at Tennessee. There's the flip side as well. You avoid another coaching search, and you've seen how those can go in Knoxville. Yeah. And you don't have to hit the reset button, which you probably would have done on the basketball program if Rick Barnes and company had left.
Very much so. And there were also stories that Philip Fulmer had kind of stepped on a toe or two. Maybe Rick Barnes wasn't thrilled with the fact that he had to go to Minneapolis and get the Naismith Award by himself. There were also stories about whether or not they met at the right time, according to Barnes, whether Barnes felt they met at the right time. There were stories that perhaps Fulmer hadn't taken the raise thing as seriously, that Barnes took it more. He had more of an eye on, I better be the second highest paid coach in the SEC than maybe UT or Fulmer saw it. But in the end of the day, I think Fulmer, the fact that you kept this guy, that's a huge boon for him, because now you don't have to do the search. And also, if he had had Pruitt going 5-7, 6-6, 7-5 this year, new women's basketball coach, growing, and you have to take a step back to 500 with your basketball program, and you're doing it with some up-and-comer, all of a sudden those are all his hires. His clock starts. I think he avoided all that. I think it was a good week for Philip Fulmer because of that.
Yeah, the idea of Philip Fulmer having to go through a basketball search in this market where it's kind of late, no one really made sense. I mean, UCLA is UCLA, and they've had a job opening until last week for 4 months. Tennessee is a good program in good shape right now, but you don't have that cachet of UCLA. You've never been to a Final Four. UCLA went to 3 Final Fours 1 coach ago. So that's the big thing. I think, Josh, you hit on it too. I mean, beyond keeping Barnes, I mean, avoiding a coaching search, which, probably was not going to go great. There was no one that really made sense that would be like, oh, yeah, that's the guy you need to go get.
Yeah.
You're going to probably take a shot on a young guy, and that might work, it might not.
I got a list of people we'll show in the next segment that were thrown out by a national writer, and I don't think anybody's going to be wowed by the list. Jimmy, one other thing that's kind of, to me, a huge plus in this for Philip Fulmer, he doesn't have to manage Rick Barnes. He knows that he's not going to worry about the NCAA or the FBI coming to town to follow Rick Barnes. He can focus. He's got a first-year or second-year football coach now, and we know he's spending a lot of time with football. He's now able to continue to do that. Now he'll be watching over a young coach and Kelly Harper a little bit, but he can just say, Rick, do your thing.
That's exactly right.
That is worth a lot of money.
Here's the other thing, too. Barnes likes being at a football school. He liked being at Texas. He believes that football helps in recruiting. So he's not one of these coaches that says, oh, no, football's overshadowing everything. Now, he wants his piece of the pie. I'll give you that. But I think he thinks recruiting, football can help recruiting in basketball. Basketball can help football recruiting, too. So I think he likes that dynamic. And oh, by the way, to say it was nothing about the money, yeah, it was.
Obviously.
If UCLA had come and said, we'll offer you $3.3 million, you think he's listening to that? Of course not. When they made the offer as high as it was, and then the buyout was an issue, he told me was a part of that, because UCLA, he told me the buyout was $4 million, and UCLA wanted to give him a signing bonus of $4 million. Then he pays the taxes on $4 million, which is $1.6 million, and he said, no, I'm not doing that. If that's the deal, we don't have a deal.
Which is all about the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that he made the comment he was going to go away and disappear and pray for a while, and people were waiting to see the smoke out of the chimney. I had no doubt he was praying about it and talking to family about it. Probably talked to an accountant about it, too, because there was a lot of money involved. Well, so, yes.
Now, if Nevada had asked him $5 million, no. Okay. So I think it's the money, and certainly UCLA, the name of UCLA was a factor. But to say it had nothing to do with money, I wouldn't go there.
Tell you what, when we come back, he got a lot of money from Tennessee. Now the debate, of course, after years of people saying Tennessee was cheap, which was never true. They always offered big money. It just sometimes doesn't work out. Now the complaint is, well, they gave him too much money. Well, when you come back, I'm going to show you they didn't give him too much money. He pays for himself. I'll show you how. Come on back on the Sports Source.